Well, good Sunday morning, everybody. Well, crime and punishment, if only that's all it took. But when trouble strikes over and over, and it's by those younger and younger, it changes your perspective. This past week, city leaders started to focus on one goal, making sure mistakes don't turn into life sentences. Well, this past Wednesday, city leaders and law enforcement officials came together to address an emerging concern in our community, teen gun violence. The meeting comes after several recent incidents involving young people. The hope? To confront a problem before it grows. With the number of tips involving teens on the rise, Crime Stoppers is now working to provide more resources and information to help parents spot the warning signs and start important conversations at home. Leaders say prevention starts with a simple message: actions have consequences.
What was discussed here today is that there's going to be more enforcement, but there's also going to be a lot more of a prevention to consider young individuals to be at risk, because as they're growing and they're growing in an age of social media, they need to know what's right and what's wrong. But it does entail that the community as a whole be able to bring that awareness to young individuals, to parents, and to anybody that works in specific with children.
Well, the discussion began earlier this week during City Council. As part of the agenda, the mayor spoke on the issue, emphasizing the need to address the root causes. He highlighted factors like disengagement, the importance of mentorship, family stressors, and opportunities for the youth. And that's where we're going to start this conversation. Joining us this morning is Laredo Police Chief Miguel Rodriguez. He is joined by KGNS General Manager Luis Villarreal. Good morning, gentlemen. Thank you so much for joining us, Chief. We know your schedule is pretty busy, but, you know, such an important conversation to have. We appreciate you being here with us. So, you know, we're only into February, at the tail end of February, and some pretty staggering numbers have come forth. What are you seeing out there?
Well, one of the things that we saw since coming the end of last year, which was December, latter part of December, we started seeing an uptick in juvenile delinquency. And what I mean by juvenile delinquency is many people think of, runaways, status offender type of things. But what we've been seeing is, juveniles carrying firearms, juveniles selling drugs, juveniles drinking alcohol. And that combination right there, it keeps us chaos in the city, because they are in a stage where they think that nothing's going to happen to them, no consequences. And we've been very, very aggressive towards the situations that we encountered. But we are doing what we've been doing in this town hall meeting and what we've been talking about in council, that we have to give that prevention, that awareness, that education to the public, right? That this is already an rise, and so we need to get in front of it. And so there's been a slight increase from 2024 to 2025 in juvenile crime. And now that we're in 2026, we've seen a staggering increase from January to February. And this is just a month and a half.
Yeah. I want to talk a little bit about the numbers of the staggering increase that you just referenced. Your Assistant Chief, Ricardo Gonzalez, made a presentation there at City Council. He said discharge year to year, discharge of firearms 2 to 4, aggravated assaults 1 to 4, murder 0 to 1 already, juvenile arrest 54 to 84. That's quite a jump year to year. So this is what you're talking about right now, this increase.
That's correct. And you see that increase not because of the increase in the criminal activity. We saw this increase in arrest because the directive has been to patrol that. In the past, we as a police department have always thought that juvenile detention is not the answer sometimes for a certain individual. And so now what we're doing in the directive is that when there is an adult and juvenile involved in a shots fired call, in a deadly conduct type of situation, that we also tag that juvenile with, engaging in organized criminal activity. And when we do that, you already put that juvenile into the process. So that's why you see that increase in those numbers, because now we're saying we have to make sure that we put out there that there's consequences to your actions. Yeah. Because right now, the way we were going about it was not working. So what we said is, like, let's change it up. Let's now say, hey, there's gonna be consequences. And for the adult that is providing a firearm, or is also, giving alcohol, drugs to a juvenile, they're also getting tagged for that.
Wow. I think you just hit the nail on the head. How are these individuals, these youngsters, 17, 16-year-olds, how are they getting guns? They're getting them from their parents? They're getting them from family members?
There's different things that are happening here, right? And so we live in a nation that it is allowed to carry weapons, that is allowed to buy a firearm. But the problem is that people are sometimes very irresponsible in taking care of those firearms.
Yes.
Whether it's a parent, whether it's a brother, whether it's an uncle. Sometimes they report weapons to us missing a year later after, hey, I haven't seen that gun since a year ago. And now I'm reporting it because I feel that somebody stole it. No, you misplaced it, you left it somewhere, somebody just grabbed it and took it. And so this is the problem that we have in our society right now where, yes, you can buy a gun, yes, you can carry a firearm, but you have to be responsible with it. And this is the problem that we're going through.
I think that the key part on all that you're saying, and first of all, Chief, I want to say thank you because what you do and what your department does, keeping us safe, is I don't think there's enough. You don't get enough praise for what you all do, and so thank you on behalf of everybody. But I think you're talking about consequences, and I think you're talking about root problems, and I think we can spend an enormous amount of time talking about this, but at the end of the day, the responsibility that starts at home with parenting, the amount of authority that we have taken away from teachers and schools because we've taken their teeth away. You know, there used to be consequences when you misbehave in school. Now there aren't any because it's always the teacher's fault, and so it is a very broad set of circumstances that have led us to where we are today. And, you are the last line of defense. You shouldn't be worried about the cause of it.
And, right, the root.
The root of the problem, but the root is on us. It's on us as parents, on us as families, and the lack of, we all talk about, oh yeah, let's throw the book at him. Until it's your son or your daughter or whatever. And then you go, well, no, give him a chance and give him this. And I get that. As a parent, you understand how you want to protect your own child. But at some point, those consequences need to be there both for the child to learn that maybe you don't want to destroy their life, but there's got to be a consequence. And the parent. You talked about the alcohol and the weapons, but, how many of us have had parties at our house where underage kids are drinking? I mean, I'm not going to put anybody on the spot here, but we all know it happens.
Absolutely.
And it happens way more than it should.
Absolutely.
And then we get amazed or surprised because there's an accident or there is a violent account, So I don't think we can underscore enough the importance of family and how important that is. And it starts at home.
Absolutely. And the family unit, we talked about this, several times in several conversations about how important it is to engage the parents, right? We believe that, and we see after every action that happens that it merits a briefing and after action from the police department. Detectives come in, patrolmen come in, and then we start dissecting the case, right? And see what's the root cause of the problem. How did it get from point A to point B in this tragedy, right? So the majority, and I say the majority, almost 95% is a broken home or a single parent home, right? And so when we're talking about homes, we know it's very difficult for a single parent to navigate life by themselves. We understand sometimes that both parents have to work. But when both parents have to work, at some point you need to check up on your son or your daughter, right? And we see all the time that when we're doing reports, what is a juvenile, what is a 15-year-old or a 14-year-old doing at Whataburger at 2 a.m. in the morning? That is wrong. You shouldn't have a 14, not knowing where he's at, waking up the parent and telling him, well, we pick up your son, we're going to take him home. Oh, okay, thank you. That is their response sometimes. And this is where the problem is. This is where the problems start, that they shouldn't be out in the street at that hour.
Nothing good is going to happen.
Exactly. And so talking to Representative Richard Raymond, we advised him, right, that I think it's time for us to bring back a curfew because they did away with that. The city cannot place any city ordinance to have a curfew.
It's on the state.
It's on the state took it off from all cities.
Correct. But it's up to the state
exactly.
to allow that.
Exactly. So that is something that for our officers, it makes it very hard because you cannot profile somebody just by them looking young. You cannot stop them and question him just by looking young. But if there's a curfew, of course you can ask, hey, how old are you? You shouldn't be out in the street. Now you have that probable cause to stop and make that interview and get him back home safe. But at the end of the day, we have several factors that are impacting this type of crime. Another big one we've talked about all the time, social media. Glorifying cartels, glorifying weapons, women, money. All these things, it affects a child's way of thinking. And we have to understand the concept of what is going to bring that back. When you don't talk to your child and your child is only believing what's on social media, this is what happens, right? You end up getting together with somebody that is doing that, selling drugs, carrying weapons, and glorifying all this that we shouldn't, right? And so the disconnect, and this generation is showing more and more and more that they're just disconnected from having a parent involved in their daily lives. We talked about it all the time and multiple conversations as to how we're going to get that push for parents to start checking their social media, start checking where they're at 10 o'clock at night. Start doing that. Because at the end of the day, you don't want anything to happen to your kid, but you also have to come in and meet us halfway. You cannot just say, hey, the police department didn't do enough.
Yeah, that's not your job. That's not your job, and that's why, I believe that it all starts right there, and it starts at home, and it starts with the ability or the willingness of the family or the parents to enforce,
Absolutely.
to check, to monitor, to just talk to them. We have stopped doing that for a long time, and now we're paying the
100%.
consequences.
Yes,
Absolutely. We're going to take a really quick break. When we come back, we're going to continue the conversation. We're going to talk about some core messages and some strategies that they are looking to implement. That's right after the break. Stay with us. Welcome back, everyone. Well, joining us this morning for a very important conversation is Laredo Police Chief Miguel Rodriguez. He's joined by KGNS General Manager. Good morning, and we're going to continue our conversation talking about the uptick that we've seen in teens that have been arrested, involved in crimes. They've got guns with them, drug possession, and it just seems like whenever we report on a news story and it comes to us identifying the alleged suspects with an age, more and more we're seeing 16, 17-year-olds, and way back then
15, 14.
Yes, way back then that was considered just a young teenager. Now they're doing adult stuff. And so I wanted to ask the question, we were talking about it during the commercial break, when you do take them in, these individuals, and they're young like that, do you ask them, where did you get this gun? What are you doing? Why are you doing this? And what are their responses?
Yeah, absolutely. We try to get as deep into what they're doing and their whereabouts. And one of the main things that happen with this type of investigations is their cell phones, right? The cell phones tells us everything that they've been doing for the past year.
So you can see their text messages, you can see...
we get our search warrants, we get everything to make sure that we get into that phone and do it the right way so that we can take it to court if we see something that we need to follow up, right? But what we've seen, and I know nowadays, before a teenager would start crying once the police would get involved, now they're just asking for their attorney. I want my attorney, I won't talk to you. Well,
I think they've been watching too much TV.
Exactly, right? And I think, we cannot interrogate a juvenile without the parent or a magistrate. That's very clear. They're very protected. We understand that. We respect that. But at the end of the day, that sometimes there's exigent circumstances where we need to follow up immediately as to what occurred. And sometimes even the parents would say, no, I don't want you to talk to my son. I don't want you to do this, and I don't want you to do that. Well, those are things that we think we need to have a hard conversations with parents, because I think the bottom line to this is that if you want to protect your son from continuing in this path, you have to step in and make sure that you check in with us and say, hey, so we can tell you this is what your son has been doing, this is what he's been involved. But sometimes they don't want to hear that. They don't want to hear that. They just want to say, I want to take my son home. I want to take my daughter home, because there's also females involved, right? So we tend to be very, try to navigate the situation as best as we can. But sometimes we have, those parents, and like we talked about, those type of parents also go to school and tell off the teacher.
Yep.
And it's always playing the victim. And that's the problem, right? That when you start playing the victim, it's game over, right? If you're not taking any consideration as to what occurred to the other victim or what's happening around your son, then it's game over, right? Don't come to us when something happens to your son and tell us, what did you guys do? Well, we try to help you.
Yep.
We try to be there for your son and for you, but you just didn't want it.
What about outside influences, Chief? Are you still seeing a trend, like I know we talked about some years ago, where the cartels were getting youngsters to do their work for them? Is that still something going on, or is this independent of that?
We want to say it's independent. What we've seen, and I'm going to be very, very clear here, that we've seen an uptick in gangs, in juvenile gangs, and what we call hybrid gangs, because these hybrid gangs are not attached to a gang that we consider to be a gang that it's already in existence, right? These gangs just pop up, and we have gangs at different schools in Laredo, but this gangs is just more like I just want to be part of a group.
Yes.
But that part of a group becomes into, let's go party together, let's go drink together, let's go pick up some drugs together. Oh, I have a firearm, let's go shoot at this guy because he's on the other side, right? I don't like him. And that's what starts getting people into problems and into trouble. And so we've seen an uptick in that, and so we monitor them, and this is the reason why we're doing different strategies, and I know you're gonna ask me about it. What are we doing about that? And we are moving 100 miles an hour on this because we believe that if we don't get ahead of this one problem where these juvenile gangs are popping up at schools, this is what's gonna continue happening in our city.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's go ahead and start talking about strategies, because I know there is a lot of them that you addressed at City Council. You talked about neighborhood engagement strategies. You talked about getting businesses involved, providing opportunities and mentorship programs, things like that. So let's kind of break them down into the strategies that you think will directly impact these youngsters.
Yeah, absolutely. So one of the things that we are definitely doing, which has worked for us tremendously, is a crime. Wherever we have a hotspot, and we have a detail in that hotspot, we have our special operation group, which is compiled of different individuals, members from the police department that are engaged on a daily basis, addressing the problems that we have. We have specific targets. We get our intelligence 24/7, up to the minute, so that they can address whatever individual is causing the problem, that we go after them very aggressively, right? And then so that's one strategy. The second one is we have to get involved with the schools again. And so this is why we're bringing back what used to be called JET, the Juvenile Enforcement Team. Now we're bringing back the Juvenile Crime Reduction Unit. And what that's going to be doing, we're going to be engaging LISD police, UISD police, making sure that we have their intelligence being absorbed by us, so that we can respond right away. And whatever we have out in the street that they have, and they can also keep an eye on the individuals that are inside the school doing all this.
So it's like a joint task force.
It's a joint task force, but completely focusing on intelligence. This incident that happened at Kearney, there was a massive text sent to a bunch of kids that there was going to be a fight. We didn't know about it. We asked the LISD police about it. They didn't know about it. So here we are, right, and said somebody inside the school should have known about that text.
Somebody should have said something.
And they should have advised us.
Yeah.
You never know. We could have probably prevented it. But at the end of the day, we need to make sure that we completely engaging our partners inside the schools. Because what sometimes happens inside the schools, we don't know about. And sometimes what happens outside the city, in the city, they don't know about.
Right.
So we need to make sure we start collaborating. We need to make sure that we share the intelligence. More than anything is real-time intelligence. What's happening? What are you seeing? It's going to be a fight. Let me send you patrolmen. Let me put some eyes there outside so that we can prevent things from happening. But this unit is also going to be an investigative unit. And again, putting the individuals that are causing the problem and getting them out of there. You know, we need to make sure that we shut it down. We cannot allow this to start growing especially within those hybrid gangs that I spoke about, and then allowing it without no consequences, we need to make sure that we start going very aggressive as to who's the number one problem in that group.
Would that be the leader or the instigator?
Exactly.
There's got to be...
Where's the root?
Yeah.
So that's with schools. What can the business community do, Chief?
Going back to our business community, right? We talk about mentorship programs, right? Within the police department, you know, we have this mentorship program where we bring in interns and we try to make sure that we put them in the right path to become police officers. But that's just to become police officers, right? With the business, what we would like to do, and talking to our fast casual, right? That's where your juveniles are going to be working. You know, your McDonald's, your Whataburger, you know, your everyday go-to
Retailers
restaurants.
and, yeah.
Chick-fil-A. What we're trying to do is making sure that we have a direct communication with those owners so that we can keep them up to date as to, hey, you have this individual, he might be getting off, you know, off track because he's hanging out with A, B, and C. But we also want to provide that information to them so that can also become that awareness. But at the same time, if you have an individual that is an 18-year-old and is in the right path of growing within your company, we also want to give the opportunity for them to say, hey, if you are able to grow within the company, but if you ever want a job in law enforcement, this is a path for you to take, right? And we want to make sure that we open that door for them and have that continued conversation. But more than anything is, how can we have that direct communication with business owners so that they can also tell us? And after this, there was one that contacted me and said, hey, I have one that is related to that group, and I want to make sure we're going to be okay. I said, absolutely, you're going to be okay. Because that one person is not doing anything related to what they were doing. But then he gave me more information. He said, well, he was involved in an altercation while he left my business. It was never reported because nothing ever happened. But should have I reported it? I said, absolutely, you should have reported that. Because those individuals are going to come back to your place of business and they're going to be able to do some damage, right? And we want to prevent that. And so the only thing we want to do is we don't want anybody to lose their jobs. What we want to do is we want to go and intervene.
Right. Before.
Hey, son, you can't be doing this, right? What can we do to help you get away from these people?
Yeah.
Whether they're bullying you, are they challenging you?
Yeah.
What can we do to get you away from them, right? And we can do that very, very well.
Chief, let me jump in here for a minute. And all of these projects and all of these efforts take manpower, obviously. And so I just want to ask the state of the department as far as where we are with open positions and things like that. Where do you sit?
Yeah, so right now we're 49 cadets, which almost 50 cadets short. But within those 50, after we do promotions, there's already a list pending, after the promotions and everything is said and done, we're going to be somewhere around 73 to 74 to date.
What's the first
Open
step?
positions.
What's the first step for somebody that wants to take that path? Where do we go? What do I do? I want to be a cop. What do I do?
You need to take the test, and
Okay.
we're going to have it March 25th.
Okay. Next
It's
month.
coming up again.
Awesome.
Yes.
Okay.
Remember, we have 1,100 that applied last year. This last time, 1,100.
So there's no lack of applicants.
Well, no.
Well, but out of those
500
1,100.
567 showed up,
Okay.
and only 269 passed.
Wow.
And only 97 passed the agility. So
Wow.
here we are again, right?
Gotcha.
We need to
Wow.
push.
Okay.
We need to push for more officers.
Almost
Okay.
like.
Okay.
Yeah, wow.
We got to do that. Thank you, Chief. Well, we're going to take a quick break. When we come back, it's the one thing our panelists cannot stop thinking about, including our chief. Stay with us. Welcome back, everybody. Well, we've hit the one thing our panelists cannot stop thinking about, but Luis and I,
We'll let Chief do this
we're
one.
going to defer our time to Chief because this is a really cool thing. Take it away, Chief.
Well, Mindy, I'm happy to brag about one thing that we got yesterday. It's straight out of the box. This is our Raptor, now new to our Laredo Police family. One of the things that it's super cool about this is that this device can detect nuclear, biological, and chemical And one of the things that we're launching with this is through our Special Weapons and Tactics Unit. And what they're going to be using Raptor 4 is going to be for tactical entries. You can speak to the individual through Raptor.
Wow.
Raptor he records at 4K. But more than anything is that he can open doors.
Wow.
He can actually follow an individual through certain areas. But the best thing about this is the ability to capture those type of environment things that are a threat to our society, right? And so safely.
Wow.
And so it can also make sure that whenever it detects a bomb, it can undo it.
Wow.
So
We'll have a big story on this that you can
yeah.
follow, and Chief will give us more information on this.
Yeah, we're excited, Chief. He's amazing. Just wonderful things that are going to come about, and the safety of the officers, most importantly.
Most important.
is
If
gonna
you
be
have
wonderful.
puppies, I want a couple.
Exactly. And he's potty trained.
Yes, he
He's
is.
potty trained.
Yes, he
Thank
is.
you so much, Chief. Wonderful conversation. We appreciate it, and thanks for bringing
Thank you,
Raptor
ma'am.
with
Thank you.
us.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Appreciate you.
absolutely. That's all the time we have for this episode of Beyond the Headlines. Make sure to tune in next week for another episode. Have a fantastic week ahead.